Hi, and welcome back to the Straight Line Path podcast. I'm joined here with my co host, Peter. In this episode, we speak with Marty Meany. Marty Meany has over a decade of experience in search engine optimization, content strategy, as well as hosting his own tech review website where he gives out tech reviews. Now, Marty has been on RTE, News Talk. He's always given his opinions in terms of marketing as a whole.
Yeah, we had a great chat with Marty, and Marty talked about content creation, why it's important for SMEs and how they can stay relevant. We talked about passion and entrepreneurship. We also talked about the golden handcuffs of a stable job and how to help people in those situations. We talked about his newest venture, Dublin Craft Beer Tours, amongst many other things. We hope you enjoy. Marty, how can businesses stay visible in 2025?
I think for me, it's all about just creating content. Like a lot of businesses get bogged down in their day to day, whatever they are, whether it be like a retail business, an online business, and you get so bogged down in balance sheets and HR and stuff, you kind of forget that your customers are always waiting to be spoken to. Um, and I think a lot of businesses don't realize how many conversation opportunities are out there. Like there's things happening on a daily basis where something trends on TikTok or something trends in search where people are just having these moments of wanting to consume more content. Um, so the way I look at it is always like these content moments are happening on like a daily basis, sometimes multiple times a day for businesses. And they might not always think they're going to be relevant, but there usually is a way they can shoehorn themselves in. And sometimes it's not even shoehorning. Sometimes it's a direct, like, we really should be talking about this. But because their head is so stuck in the game of the day to day, they kind of miss it. So I think, and look, there's lots of businesses out there that nail it. These are the ones that like show behind the scenes of their business, like packing orders on TikTok or, running around like there's a credit union, I think in Dundalk, that's nailed it really well recently of just creating memes and funny content. And, people follow them now. And I guarantee you there's younger generations who are now more likely to get a credit union loan in Dundalk because of them. And that's all because they saw the opportunity to create content, to create awareness, and just get in front of people's eyeballs. And a lot of businesses forget that completely, that out of sight, out of mind. Like, everyone's looking for like, we've come through this big digital revolution of like, everything is trackable, everything is traceable. We need ROI. We need to make sure the content we're creating is delivering. And upper funnel awareness is the hardest thing in the world to measure, but it's so important because if you don't get people early on, you're not going to get people at all. You need to look at conversions from the point of view of it's not just we've converted somebody who wasn't a customer to a customer. You need to convert somebody from who wasn't aware of your business to being aware of your business, from not being aware of the problem they're having to the solution existing. So conversions happen the whole way along. And for me, that's the most important thing a lot of businesses aren't doing is just creating content nearly for the heck of it, that just speaks to people earlier in their journey, not so late where they're like just making a purchase decision.
100%. And for those businesses that aren't, maybe they're stuck in the weeds and they're not creating content at the moment, what is the first things they can do, the first steps they can do to create content and, become more visible as a brand?
The first answer that comes to mind is get over themselves. Get over the fear of things, get over it having to be perfect, get over that it's not going to be perfect. Treat it like I don't know how, like it's almost like an MVP of what your content strategy will become. Just create something and post it. Like the amount of times I've posted something, like I was laughing the other day, I've done these videos where I've tried to craft beautiful angles and like be all Steven Spielberg about shooting something. And yet the most viewed TikTok I ever had was me lying on the couch recording a RoboVac, picking up some dust. Like the algorithm and people are weird. They don't care that your content is polished. Actually, polished content might put them off. Just go out, create something, grab your phone. Like if you see somebody doing a trend, like one of these like packaged ideas, just go do it, jump on it. Like I know it gets kind of repetitive when you click the sound on TikTok and you kind of keep scrolling through the same sound over and over again, seeing different people doing the same idea. But all those people are after getting millions and millions of views. Sometimes TikTok is great for creativity for people who aren't normally that creative. It's a great way to start out because the kind of the blueprint and the framework for going viral is there. Now, you're also going to have a lot of videos you create where, like, you end up with like 300 views and it's very depressing. But like at the same time, it's a way to learn how to create. So don't be afraid of just creating, like, especially even on your own website, like with blogs. Don't be afraid to just write something and leave it there and see what happens. Sometimes it'll get picked up, sometimes it won't. But like getting started with that process of creating, it just gets you over the hump of not creating, which is obviously so much easier. And I think you often find a lot of people enjoy it. You'll also get people who are like, the TikTok, the social media manager, chasing people around the office trying to get somebody to volunteer for a video, and like volunteer in quotes. But at the end of the day, once you start creating, it's very hard to stop because it can become the most fun part of your job.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. So you've just started a startup. It's called GanderPluck. Can you tell us a little bit about what GanderPluck does, what it is?
Yeah, well, it's the idea behind GanderPluck is exactly to try and get people creating that content earlier, to try and service the upper funnel where ROI is harder to justify. It's very hard to track somebody from searching something in Google about a general problem they have that doesn't specifically mention your brand, all the way through to purchasing something later. And because of that, a lot of companies don't make content for the upper funnel. So what GanderPluck does, it takes a lot of data and combines that with generative AI to create high quality content. So obviously people can use ChatGPT to create content if they want, but the output's going to be very poor. So what we do is we lace it in with a lot of data, a lot of best practice across a couple of key verticals, like search engine optimization, that kind of thing, and then create the content across a large number of platforms and formats. So the idea is that GanderPluck alerts a business to a trending topic in their conversation space, and then gives them the opportunity to talk about it with a single click. Now, it is still human in the loop. We still insist that people review the content, make sure it's factually correct, make sure, like, we do fact checking as well, but we want to make sure it's factually correct in relation to their business. It's also correct in terms of their tone. We'll factor in a lot of this, but it is still important that somebody reviews it and maybe adds in a little bit more personality or a little bit more brand to it. And eventually the platform will learn over time and get better and better as well. So the goal for GanderPluck really is to de-risk marketing to the upper funnel, to make people do it more. And hopefully we can help smaller businesses and bigger businesses that just don't do it, reach more people and kind of grow incrementally in that area off the back of a part of the marketing funnel that kind of goes underserviced because it's just so hard to kind of show ROI off it. And we are also integrating with analytics as well to try and start improving the visibility of the impact from that earlier funnel engagement as well.
So how do you see GanderPluck helping the marketing team, let's say on a day-to-day basis? How is this going to change their day-to-day activities, and what does that look like for the next coming years with the obviously ever improving AI space?
So I think my first thought would have been a couple of years ago that it kind of democratizes it a bit, that everybody on the team becomes almost responsible for content because it's more of an in the loop conversation than a dedicated role. And the biggest issue I've seen from speaking to people is that we just don't have the time or the resource to create the content we need. However, I also believe that if everybody is responsible for something, nobody is responsible for it. So there will still always have to be a kind of a dedicated resource that looks for something in-house. However, at the same time, I think that what it's going to do is give people or give teams just a bit more insight into the opportunities they were missing. Like, because GanderPluck proactively tells people of these conversation opportunities, they're much, much harder to miss. And because the friction to create the content is so much less, they're probably going to be more likely to create that content as well. So while I think it's still going to be very much on an individual's shoulders, or at least somebody should be assigned to look after the marketing strategy or the output of the content marketing team, I see GanderPluck making those conversations much more visible, much more frequent, and probably much more enjoyable to create. Like the timeline to creating content is going to be much, much shorter. And hopefully the goal for GanderPluck, hopefully, and I say hopefully because I'm building it, is that the content quality should be so much higher. even in a short turnaround time.
Absolutely. And so, just so I can get a picture, so GanderPluck would almost be like a super assistant, marketing assistant dedicated for a business, something that keeps them up to date with trends and then also helps them and aids them in the producing of content.
Yeah, like our goal is to create a platform that becomes a single click content marketing machine. The goal would be that there's a conversational moment, you get an alert, like an email, and from a single click, we give you all the social media content, all the blog content, everything you'd need to make a video, whether it be a storyboard to a script. Then eventually we will evolve into, like, we see VO3 coming out now with Google Gemini. We're hoping that eventually that will become more affordable, that we can integrate it as well at the price point that we're targeting. It's obviously a very expensive integration at the minute. But the leap forward with VO3 is massive. Like the content quality is, when that demo got released, it immediately got into my business model of, okay, that has to fit somewhere at some stage, because that quality is good enough. You're bypassing the regular kind of stock stuff as well. Like, you're going to be generating pretty good AI video content as well. And again, I see this as another opportunity to turn everything into single click. Like it's not, I know an awful lot of people don't like AI for everything, which is why we're trying to keep humans in the loop as much as possible. But at the same time, to be able to give a small business, the power to do an entire marketing campaign across the blog on their website, social media, captions, being able to help them create their video and even create filler parts of the video for them, like where they're told you need to film this to camera and then this stock video comes in, then it cuts back to you and closes with this stock video. And to be able to do all that from a single click is what GanderPluck aims to do.
And Marty, you've seen this opportunity arise. Is that through talking to business owners, and some people, they say they're hesitant to create content, or like you said, they just don't know what to make. How did you come to this conclusion? I want to make this.
So I think GanderPluck is the tool I wish I had in my jobs for the last 10 years. Like, it's from seeing it started out with me automating what I wanted from a tool to do for me. And then I always say, fortunately, I found myself in a position last year being made redundant in 2 companies, which was, I think, a world record for redundancies in a single year. But and it's funny, the first reaction people always have is, God, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, don't be. I'm after having the most fun ever since, because I've been building a tool that I wanted for the last 10 years to make my life easier. And then I was deciding whether I go back freelancing as an SEO or do I actually try and build this. And I was like, well, it'd be a lot more fun to do this to help 1,000 businesses rather than freelance and help one. So GanderPluck effectively is it's doing everything I've done for the last 10 years and building on that experience of kind of what search engines look for and like what social media algorithms are looking for. And as well, in-house, seeing the friction that gets caused by trying to create content in a team. All the tools that we've tried to use over the years have holes in them. They're fractured. You need about 5 tools to achieve a single task. So I look at GanderPluck as being the all-in-one solution that fixes every problem I've had for the last 10 years. And from speaking to businesses and from other people in marketing and decision makers at various companies, I know other companies are having the exact same problems I've been having. So, and it makes a lot of sense. So hopefully what happens is the product gets built, performs exactly like I know it does perform for everybody else. Because the content it's creating right now, I am testing it live on the internet. It ranks, it gets traffic, which was one of the key fears at the start, because Google search engine algorithms are sensitive at times. So maybe it wouldn't like AI generative content, but the way we're doing it seems to work really well. So.
Interesting. You are studying GanderPluck at the moment, but you've also had other ventures. So you've had Goosed.ie and as well Dublin craft beer tours. Has entrepreneurship always been on your radar?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's probably, I got a lot of from my dad. So I always say it's funny. My dad always said, "You're young enough to fail." Unfortunately, he said that 7 years ago before he died, and I'm still not so sure I'm actually still young enough to fail. But I'm still keeping that mentality going with me because it's more fun. Well, like I know he was definitely an entrepreneur as well. Like he was the local funeral director. He was the local guy who fixed cars. He had a day job, but he always had something else going on the side just because I think he was like me, easily bored, but also extremely curious. And I think I got a lot of that from him. So for me, it's always like, well, what can I do to keep going? Like, you know, on my 21st birthday, I obviously made some money in the cards. Um, and I ended up buying DJ gear and started DJing for a while and find out it wasn't really for me, but I ended up making a lot of money at that as well. And I was like, yeah, cool, I did it. What's next? Um, then starting Goosed was like, yeah, it's great, but like making money from a media company is not easy these days. So that's why I kind of saw the opportunity when, you know, getting let go last year. I was like, well, this is a perfect opportunity to go and start something new. Um, then GanderPluck came along, and I was like, okay, well, this is a long play. This is going to take probably a little bit longer to get into place, and you know, I need to start making money. And I really don't want to go back to an office job. I know I'm probably going to create myself an office job, but for the time being, I just don't want to be in an office job. So that's why I started Dublin Craft Beer Tours. It's another thing I'm passionate about. Is I'm a home brewer. I make beer, and I said, feck it, let's go and try and bring some people around for a tour. We had our first tour a couple of weeks ago. Some people from Australia found the tour, like the website I was building, by accident, and they were like, "Can we book?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's not ready. So I'm going to give you a big discount, but yeah, let's go for it." And they were great. Like they really enjoyed it. Brought them around. Local business enjoyed it. Every business and all the pubs I went to were super excited, and all the breweries I've talked to, because obviously the Irish pubs and breweries are having a tough time of it lately. And like drinking numbers are going down, which, look, it's not a completely bad thing. I know drinking is not great for your health. Um, but all the pubs are extremely excited to see somebody doing something like this. And I kind of couldn't believe it wasn't already being done. So I guess you kind of see these gaps, and I tend to see these gaps on nearly a daily basis, and kind of I actually pull myself back a bit from seeing, like, I've already built, like, there was one day there I took a prototyping day where, you know, this new idea of vibe coding. I just started building an app that would, like, you know, you had to picture something specifically in your house to unlock your social media. And I've never built an iPhone app before. In 12 hours, I built an iPhone app, and I was like, AI is crazy that's able to help me do this. Um, and then that was it. I parked that and I was finished with it. So it's I'm curious, but I get bored, and I hope somewhere along the lines or somewhere along the way, the entrepreneurialism kicks in and I make money at one of these things. But as I said, if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll probably see that I've joined a new company in the next 6 to 12 months because it all fell apart and I need to start making money to pay rent.
um, you talk about finding these gaps, and I think anybody who's interested in entrepreneurship sees opportunities all around them. What would you say to that person who's maybe still in the job? As you say, the scenario of becoming redundant, you've seen it as a good thing. But what would you say to that person who's stuck there? They have this opportunity, but they just need that little urge to, go produce something. What's a bit of advice you'd give them?
Yeah, I guess I used to call it the golden handcuffs. You know, when you're paid a salary and you're paid your healthcare and you know your pension's been looked after, it's really difficult. Um, I think the one thing I've had is, you know, massive support from my partner. She's been fantastic. She's from day one been like, go for it. You know, like, just go for it. You know, the one bit of advice I'd have is communicate to your family and friends, because they will support you more than likely. They'll often, when you're taking that big a step, they'll probably tell you it's a bad idea if it is a bad idea. Like I know a lot of people say, like, you know, friends and family will only ever tell you what you want to hear. But when it comes to like your career and like making a life choice like this, they'll probably tell you it's a bad idea. Um, so I personally have found that just having that support from family is really, really important, especially here at home, my other half. Um, the other thing I guess is just plan. You know, like, obviously couldn't really plan for a double redundancy, but like, you know, it gave me a little bit of runway to go with something like this. So if you want to take the leap, just, you know, try and save a bit more to give yourself that runway, because you don't know how long you're going to be going for this. And you need to be kind of confident that it's a good idea to go for before you go and give up your nice, you know, 50K a year, 60K a year plus year job. Um, you know, you don't want to give that up for something that's not going to have any hope of working. So, and it might take a little bit longer than you think. It probably will. Like, you know, I started this back in, I think, October, November last year, and it still hasn't gotten to where I thought it would. Things move slowly. Um, Even when you're trying to move at 100 miles an hour, like I had an MVP built in 4 weeks, and it's changed, it's evolved, it's on like prototype 3 now. Everything takes a little bit longer than you think. So build a runway, build it long, and make sure you communicate with family and make sure you have the support of the people around you. Because until you have that support, you won't go anywhere because you're just going to constantly feel like you're kind of wheels spinning in the dirt. So I'm glad I had that support from day one.
You mentioned having an MVP set up. How important, or what advice would you give to founders who maybe start a startup, for example, and they get in the weeds with research and planning and never actually build that MVP and get feedback? What advice would you give in regards to creating an MVP?
Yeah, I guess it's a bit chicken and egg, really. Like, I know you need to do the research, but you also need to build something because there's an awful lot of, like, for me, I need to understand technically what's going to work. I need to know what APIs are out there. I need to know what can I connect, what can I scrape, what data can I gather, what technical limitations will I hit. Which probably if you're like a seasoned developer, you probably won't hit that. But because I'm coding something with practically no coding experience and using AI, I need a lot more kind of time to work out what problems I'm facing. So like I needed to build an MVP first because it gave me an idea of where this could go and what was technically feasible. Then I did need to start speaking to companies because I was like, right, this is great. I've built this in a silo. Now I need to know, do people actually need this? And from speaking to companies, I quickly learned that, okay, I need to tweak it. And that's why it's gone through a couple of iterations already. So I guess the one bit of advice I definitely have is do try and code yourself with AI, because people always think, oh, where do I start? It's like literally the first thing is asking AI, I want to do this. This is my concept. Where do I start? Um, I was lucky. I'd built a home server here. I got my AI subscription and I just started going for it. And sure enough, things just worked out really well. Um, and things started working. The server worked, everything worked, but it was all because of AI. Every single issue I faced, I've had to use AI to debug it, and it eventually works. Going into logs and pasting them. But you don't have to be massively technical. Like, I'm a technically minded person, but I'm technically useless. Like, I can't code. I can't understand logs. I don't. If some server error comes up, I don't know what that means. But I can paste that into AI, and AI definitely knows what it means. Um, so for me, I think that's the key thing is just kind of, it's hard to know which one comes first, but don't be afraid to jump back and forth. Like, don't get so stuck into customer research that you find out technically something you want to do is not possible, or don't get so stuck into MVP that you completely build something that's irrelevant to your customers. I think you need to kind of keep going back and forth between the two. Like, I think a lot of people I thought I was building an MVP for months, and what I'd actually built was my first prototype. Like, I was even using the term MVP until very recently. And I was like, this isn't an MVP. This is a prototype. This is a proof of concept at best. Um, so it's to kind of keep that mentality of, it's not one or the other is more important. They both need to feed into each other constantly.
Just to pull it back to the craft beer tours, this is obviously something you're deeply passionate about. You're a home brewer, like you said. You're really concerned about the breweries in Ireland and the hard time they're getting now. How important is passion in entrepreneurship? Is it something that everybody needs, or can you go out maybe without the passion?
I'm sure you can. I'm sure there's plenty of guys out there who have made a business and, they didn't really care about the industry they're in. They just saw the opportunity and made money at it. Um, it wouldn't be for me, like, because my approach to this is I'm trying to create something I love. I'm trying to create something that doesn't feel like work. For me, it kind of has to be more, I'm actually into it. And what I find is, even for me, I'll admit I'm cyclical. Like, I'll go through cycles of like, why am I doing this? Like, this is no longer fun. Like, there's even times with building GanderPluck, there's been a week where I couldn't work on it because I'm like, this is, maybe I was wrong. Maybe this isn't my passion. And then, you pitch or you present about it, or you're sitting on the couch and you have an idea. You come upstairs, you add it to your MVP, and all of a sudden you're going, I love this again. Once that spark keeps coming back, I love it. And it keeps coming back for this. But it's understanding you're going to have lulls as well. You're not always going to love what you're doing. You're always, every now and then you're going to hate it. It's going to be like something breaks, or like recently I had to shut down my server because we were getting a new meter installed here. And when I rebooted the server, half my back end wasn't working and the front end wasn't connected to it anymore. And I was like, oh, this is going to be so much, because I can't look at it and be like, I know what's wrong. I know this is an hour of debugging with AI to get it back up and running again. So I can tell you my passions get questioned in those kind of moments. Obviously, when you're doing a beer tour, it's different. Like, it's very easy to enjoy a beer tour. But again, I was lucky. My first one was with two great Australian people who are over here to have a lot of fun. I'm sure you get the wrong people on a beer tour, it goes the other way. And my passions will be questioned again. Um, so like, yeah, I'm sure plenty of people out there have created businesses and made small fortunes in areas that they don't really care about. You could argue Jeff Bezos probably doesn't necessarily like selling back scratchers, but I'm sure he enjoys selling a lot of stuff. I'm sure he enjoys selling a lot of back scratchers at a massive margin. Um, so yeah, I think it's possible without passion, but I'd question why somebody really wants to get into it without the passion. But then again, maybe they're the ones who are probably seeing the opportunity more than anybody. And, it's kind of like a kind of a vulture fund almost in their own head that they know they can make money just by pouncing on this.
Hmm. In terms of like entrepreneurship or an entrepreneurship cycle, you always find that there's ups and downs, kind of what you mentioned there. When a entrepreneur is feeling these, say they're in the valley of despair, which it's called sometimes, what advice or what kind of motivation or what should this entrepreneur understand about these moments to get them through to success?
Um, I think the first one is don't beat yourself up. Like, a lot of people think this is it. I've ruined my life. I shouldn't have done this. I've given up my job, and a week later, I'm like, I hate this. What am I doing? I would say don't beat yourself up. Go for a walk. Go for a pint. Go talk to friends. Talk to family. Like I said at the start, they're an important part of this. They're your support network. But also try and be in communities. Like I found the early stages of this whole process very lonely. Not like physically lonely, because I have loved ones around me, but like the process of being at your computer and developing this thing and it being an early prototype and not being out in the wild means it's very much a personal thing between me and my prototype. It's I'm building it, I'm using it, I'm seeing it, and then you kind of get to a point of going, this is extremely lonely. So I would say try and get into a community. Like, even with the joining New Frontiers with Enterprise Ireland, like, that was a small community of people on a similar journey. And some of those were tech AI products. So to be able to talk to these people on a one-to-one basis and be able to like, I can totally relate to you and, to meet them at a conference and go for a coffee and to have a chat with them. And I found that to be where most of my energy came back into the project, was where I could talk about my project to somebody else who knows what I'm going through. And we could kind of bounce ideas off each other, kind of you know, solve problems together. Even me helping solve their problems is really rewarding, because it's like I haven't been able to solve one of my own for a week, but I'm really glad I'm able to solve one of yours. It kind of almost like it tricks your own mind into going, I have achieved something, even if it wasn't for my own project. So I think getting into communities early, and probably earlier than I have, because now that phase one is over for me, I'm trying to think, what can I do for the next couple of months to get back into a similar community, because I don't want to go back to that lonely place. I want to be back in that kind of faster working community, kind of mind going constantly at problem solving and having that kind of problem solving social part of my brain almost firing at the same time. That seems to be where I work best. And I think, yeah, underestimating that kind of the loneliness that this can cause, and it's a weird loneliness. I think that's one of the most important things that entrepreneurs need to overcome when they do hit that kind of valley of despair. Is like, how do I get out of it, and like not being too hard on themselves, realizing there's some real practical things they can do, like go for a workout or whatever. But then also knowing that they on Tuesday they're going to be in a shared working space with some other people. So.
Mm. And somebody like yourself who's multiple projects going on, like we've mentioned earlier, with Goosed as well, how do you successfully manage your time between different projects? Is it one week is all GanderPluck, the next week's Goosed, or is everything just in the firing line?
Honestly, I think my first way to answer that is like, how do I manage my time? Is I don't. Like I'm terrible for just like whatever the first fire I see is, it's the first one I put out. Like, I'll have a company send me something to test out. Um, if they email me saying they need it done urgently and where's the review, that tends to be where my focus goes. Um, it's when you're working on so many projects, it's nearly impossible to schedule it. Like with Dublin Craft Beer Tours, that's great because it's just built, it's just staying in the background. Every now and then I'll pop some ads up. But other than that, it just sits there waiting for another order. Um, Goosed is a bit more opportunistic. Like, there's most of our traffic comes from a trending topic, like some network going down or some real world thing happening. But then there's opportunities around, like right now, one of the big things is Nintendo Switch 2 launching, and that they're doing a midnight launch. So we did an article about that, and that's blowing up right now. Um, so balancing my time or managing my time is difficult because I often don't. Um, However, I find that works for me. It probably won't work for everybody. Like once GanderPluck gets a bit more of a structure around it in terms of like, if we get into an accelerator, if we get into like phase 2 of New Frontiers, that will be a lot more structured, and I'll have a lot more of a deadline orientated working way of working around it, which won't be necessarily too bad for me. I think I'll definitely benefit from that because the accountability is so important. Like that, even with phase 1, having that meeting on a Tuesday and Thursday and knowing I had to be held accountable for the progress from last week, I found that really good for me, because without that, like, my accountability is often to a PR person in a company who sent me something to test out. And they come back being like, well, where's our review? Like, I know as soon as I'm off this call, I have to turn around and write a review for a tech company. Because they emailed me on Friday going, where's the review? And I'm like, yeah, sorry, that's late, to be fair. So yeah, it's about juggling, but also about kind of prioritizing whatever's about to go on fire the worst next.
Mhm. And in terms of GanderPluck, what is your timeline and vision for GanderPluck the next few years?
I guess the immediate timeline is probably the next 12 months is to get from prototype, well, from probably third prototype into MVP and get in front of customers. Um, from the surveying I've done, I have like 80% of customers have said they want to use the platform. So whether that's for free or for a nominal fee to cover server costs or whatever, that's the next 12 months, is just to get in front of customers and hopefully maybe even push on to kind of like version 1 out in the wild. Like, build the website that actually sells it. Um, then I guess the next couple of years is going to be adding in functionality that I know people want. It's not all going to be there for launch. Most of the important stuff will be, and then it'll be iterating for the next couple of years. I think the real goal is to get first 100 customers in the next 2 years. Like, I don't want to onboard a crazy amount of customers and not be able to speak to the early adopters enough to make the platform better. Because once people start using what I've created, I want to know what they think of it and what's missing and what's there they're not using, so I can strip it out and add new functionality. And I think that's done best with a relatively small group. Now, maybe I'll find that 100 people isn't giving me enough feedback, and then we scale up to 1,000. And then I think on paper, it looks like in maybe 5 years, it's something that's making a good amount of money. It's got a lot of customers, but like, sorry, I even framed that wrong in my own mind, because what I want to build is a platform that's good, that serves the customer. The money should be a byproduct of that. I don't want to build something based on, I need 100 customers and they're all going to pay me 1 million. I'd rather have 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 customers paying me a lot less. Because for me, that means we're servicing the industry better. We're servicing all industries better, because a lot of companies are now reaching customers that they couldn't reach before, in a new way, and kind of giving them a rewarding experience with them spending a smaller amount on a platform that delivers exponentially for them. So the next couple of years, yeah, I'd like to say they're really well planned out, but I think, being realistic to myself, as much as every funding round is going to need like ideas on paper and timelines, I think realistically everybody knows it's all finger in the air stuff, and like, it's all going to change dramatically on a weekly, monthly, and annual basis.
But it's great to see that that base is solid and it's a customer focused, and you really want to build the best platform for those. And then from there, hopefully the dots align. But I have to ask you this before we go. I know the Dublin craft beer tours, you said you had your first one there with the Australians and it went very well. I need to know, what is the best beer in Dublin, in your opinion, and is Guinness overrated?
So Guinness is like my go-to. It's where I'll go to the local. Like, I was out for the Champions League final the other night, and I was drinking Guinness. It's, you get it in a good bar, it's hard to beat it. Um, Controversy is not my favorite stout in Dublin. My favorite stout in Dublin is actually here in the Porterhouse, on Parliament Street. They do an oyster stout, which is actually, it's not suitable for vegetarians or people with seafood allergies because they literally use oysters in the brewing process. So they now actually contract brew with, because I'm actually kind of answering two questions with one here. They contract brew with a crowd from Donegal called Kinnegar, who is probably, between them and the White Hag, Ireland's two best breweries. And Kinnegar oddly don't really do many stouts themselves, but they brew their oyster stout. But like, Big Bunny from Kinnegar is probably my favorite beer. Technically from Donegal, not from Dublin. But you'll find it in Dublin in quite a few places. In Underdog on Capel Street is probably one of the best places to get it. But yeah, in terms of, is Guinness overrated? No, it's a great drink. Is their marketing team doing most of their work? Yes. I have tested the 2-part pour, and doing a 1-part pour. It does make a difference, which I know a lot of people would argue with. But I was at a house party one night that happened to have a keg, and I stood there testing it for science. And yeah,
Absolutely.
it does make a difference. But yeah, if you're looking for the best stout in Dublin, I would actually say oyster stout in Porterhouse.
Great. Thank you for that.
Marty, you're building something very impressive, very exciting, I have to say, GanderPluck. Thank you for coming on. And I just wanted to ask you, where can people find you? Where can people watch GanderPluck's story and, improving as a platform? Where can people find you?
Yeah, best thing to do, I guess, to follow this story is probably LinkedIn. You'll find me on, I think it's Marty Meany or Martin Meany. I'm never sure what, I change across different platforms. I'm pretty sure I think my URL is Martin Meany, but my name is Marty Meany. So probably find me on LinkedIn or just look for Goosed on Instagram, or just find the website and you'll find links for me there somewhere as well. So it's probably the easiest way to follow.
Thanks for coming on, Marty. Appreciate it.
Cheers, guys. Appreciate it. Been great.